Hi everybody, welcome to Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repair. Looking at another Stihl 031 AV. If you guys recall, about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, I worked on one locally here that had a problem with spark. It was intermittent. In fact, I had the saw, I thought, repaired just in time for the gentleman to come pick it up. I went to fire it up for a test run, and guess what? She didn't run. So that was kind of embarrassing and irritating all in one. These 031s use this trigger module that sits underneath the flywheel. And my good friend TJ turned me on to the fact that even though it's siliconed all up here, these leads tend to crack and make intermittent connection in there. It's what it was on the previous saw, it's what it was on this saw. The first time I pulled the rope over, I actually had good spark, but it wasn't consistent. I jostled it around a little bit, turned it on its side, disassembled a few things, came back, guess what? No spark. So here we go. We're putting an Atom module in. I ordered that on eBay. I mean, we all know what they look like. Mine came packaged in newer packaging like this, and it's got made in Taiwan all over it, so it is what it is. What are you gonna do? But I wanted to talk a little bit about these 031s and the way they're packaged. There's no damn room. Stihl made use of every ounce of space that this saw takes up. So to get one of these installed, there's no room under the flywheel. It'll hit no matter what you do. And there would be no way to get the leads out effectively with the way you'd have to mount it. So my chosen method is a zip tie to the top of the coil. Let me see if I can get this. Oh, there we go. Along with some super glue as a backup. Unsophisticated, yeah. Effective, yeah, I think so. So again, just a heavy-duty zip tie. This is an 8-incher that was, fairly wide, not one of those real chintzy Harbor Freight ones. A little super glue on the back, and stick it right to the top of the coil. You don't want it to hang past the edge at all, but you don't want these leads sticking out too far, because there's not much relief in the back of the... I'm going to zoom this back out so you guys can see. There's not much relief in the back of the starter housing here. And this is such a convoluted little mess. I've got too much stuff in the way to... Yeah, there's no way I can show you guys that. Unless I can do this without getting totally stupid. You should be able to see that. The back of the starter here. That's the relief area. We got to make sure the coil and all this other jazz fits into. Hopefully that wasn't too much shaking around. So anyway, these are real easy to wire. You take your lead that would have gone to the trigger and cut that, and it's going to go to the positive lead of the Atom, and this other one is going over to the kill switch. The negative lead off of this is simply going to ground. Very, very simple to install. So I'll show you what it entails getting this. I've got this twisted a little bit. There we go. So you can hear my kids screaming in the background. They just got home. So who knows what kind of an appearance we'll get today. You want to tuck your wire nut back up kind of alongside the spark plug wire there. And then index the starter right there. So now it'll screw into place. When it sits flat against the housing like that, you're good. If it's pushed out at all, it isn't going to work. So I'm going to get this the rest of the way assembled, and then we'll come back for a test run. Alright, what do you say? Let's see if she'll run. test the carb with that on. Felt like she wasn't getting quite enough fuel there. That's what I'm talking about. As to what hit me in the foot on that video. Maybe I rattled that nut off the bench. I don't see anything off this saw. Okay, so it worked. That's the good news. A little bit of heat from firing it up ought to help that super glue set up perfectly. One note, on these 031s, if you're tearing one apart, be careful what you're doing, that you don't end up taking something apart you don't want to. The fuel tank half here has a gasket that runs that whole length. Now, if it's not leaking, one way to make it leak real fast is to think that taking those two screws loose is how you get this whole handle assembly off. It's not. Don't touch those screws. The very first thing you want to do is get this top cover off, and it's the throttle assembly. Those two screws for the handle come loose. That AV mount, that screw there, 1, 2, and then the third one way up there. This nut, and then bang that screw out. Now we'll get that top cover off. After that, it's super simple. Obviously the air filter needs to come loose, but after that you don't even have to pull the carburetor off. You're going to have 1, 2, 3. And then this whole, the fuel tank assembly and starter grill are going to come off after that. At that point you'll have access to the flywheel, the coil, and all that sort of jazz. You don't even have to take this handle all the way off unless you just want it the heck out of your way. But again, do not touch those screws on the bottom that are coming from that way. Those are the fuel tank screws. Now these were loose, but thankfully I tightened them up, and I've had fuel in this thing for about 10 minutes and nothing's come through. We'll do the overnight test. That's the easy one. We'll set it on the floor, and if there's a puddle underneath there, well, great. I get to tear it apart again and seal the tank. I don't think the housing was torn, or the gasket was torn, so when the housings were sandwiched back up, I think it's good. So anyway, Larry, you just heard the old beast running. I'll touch up the chain, clean that up a little bit, and let this thing sit for, again, overnight and maybe a day. See if there's any fuel underneath it, give it one more test run, and then we'll get it back to you.